Before we start diving into the story, please take a second to like this video and subscribe. It only takes a second, but it will help the channel grow. Thank you for your interest in our channel. I had chosen this isolated mountain cottage as my sanctuary, a refuge where I could mend the fractures of my past amid the snowy slopes of Northern California. Every dawn, I bundled up in my favorite worn coat and stepped out into the crisp air, wandering along winding trails blanketed by fresh powder. My solitary walks were a daily ritual, a time for reflection on losses, disappointments, and the fragile hope that each step might bring me closer to inner peace. The silence of the wilderness was a constant companion, echoing my quiet determination to leave old wounds behind. That morning, however, the stillness was brutally interrupted by a forceful, almost aggressive knock at the door. The sudden sound shattered the delicate calm I had so carefully built, jarring me out of my reverie like a clap of thunder on a clear day. With a pounding heart and trembling hands, I hesitated only a moment before making my way to the door, every step heavy with uncertainty and the promise of change. When I swung the door open, I was confronted by an unexpected figure, my nephew Logan. He stood there tall and gaunt, his heavy, weathered backpack slung over one shoulder, and eyes dark with fatigue and secrets I couldn't quite decipher. "I couldn't wait, so I decided to come today," he said in a tone that was detached yet laced with urgency. Before I could form a single question or protest the intrusion, he leaned in and pressed a brief, startling kiss to my cheek, a gesture that sent a jolt of conflicting emotions surging through me. In that instant, tender childhood memories collided with an unsettling anxiety, as if the past and present were warring within a single heartbeat. The warmth of his kiss clashed with the biting chill of the morning air, and I felt as if the sanctuary I had so painstakingly built was crumbling around me. I clutched the doorframe, acutely aware that nothing would ever be the same. The shock of his sudden arrival left me with a cascade of questions and an inescapable feeling that this was no ordinary visit. As I slowly closed the door behind me, I realized that the fragile balance of my life was about to be upended, and that every breath from now on would be steeped in both dread and a reluctant curiosity about the secrets he might bring. The day unfolded with an uneasy tension, each moment punctuated by Logan's silence and cryptic glances. Over breakfast, a hastily made cup of coffee and a piece of toast, I attempted to bridge the gap between us with small talk about the weather and local happenings. Yet, every time I inquired about his unexpected arrival or the long journey he must have undertaken, he only offered short, vague replies. His eyes wandered as if haunted by memories he refused to share, leaving me with more questions than answers. Our conversation slowly spiraled into a confrontation when the topic of old family debt surfaced. "You know," Logan muttered, his voice dropping to a low, bitter tone, "some people in this family have a way of dodging their responsibilities." His words hit me like a punch, and I could feel the pulse of anger mingling with confusion. I pressed him further, desperate to understand which relatives bore the weight of such accusations, but every response only deepened the mystery. It was as if each word he spoke was a carefully crafted diversion, meant to distract from something he wasn't ready to confront. In the midst of our heated exchange, the doorbell rang again. This time, it wasn't the forceful knock of the morning, but a more measured, almost apologetic chime that broke through our escalating tension. I opened the door to find a courier whose professional smile and crisp uniform contrasted sharply with the turmoil inside. The package he handed me was wrapped in old-fashioned paper, its edges frayed and stained with the passage of time. Inside, I discovered a bundle of letters and faded photographs that hinted at a deep, long-forgotten family secret, a secret that seemed to connect to our current dispute. Logan's reaction to the package was instantaneous. His eyes darkened, and for a brief moment, the cold detachment in his gaze gave way to something raw and vulnerable. "I didn't want you to see these," he said, his tone suddenly shifting from bitter irony to a reluctant admission of guilt. The change in his demeanor was jarring. One moment he was dismissive, and the next he appeared almost repentant, as though the past was clawing its way back into the present. As I examined the contents of the package, my heart raced with a mixture of dread and anticipation. Each letter and photograph was a piece of a puzzle I hadn't known existed, a story of broken promises, secret alliances, and betrayals that cut deeper than any family feud should. Meanwhile, Logan's words danced around the truth, laced with double meanings and contradictions. His ironic quips now felt like a mask over deep-seated conflict, a desperate attempt to hide the turbulent emotions bubbling beneath the surface. The intensity of the day built to a crescendo as our dialogue became a battlefield of unspoken truths. Every sentence from Logan, every pause filled with unsaid thoughts, drove us further into an abyss of uncertainty. I sensed that behind his evasive responses lay a torrent of unresolved pain and anger, a past he was unwilling or perhaps unable to face. With every new revelation hinted at by the mysterious letters, the tension between us tightened like a noose, drawing us inexorably toward a confrontation that promised to shatter the fragile semblance of normalcy. Late that morning, I left the cottage with the lingering tension still clinging to my thoughts. I decided to take a detour down to the local fair, a modest, bustling market where the scent of fresh produce and homemade pastries filled the air. There, amidst the lively chatter and bright stalls, I unexpectedly ran into Marcus, my longtime neighbor and confidant. Marcus had always been candid with me, unafraid to share the rough edges of his own life, and today his weathered face wore the weight of fresh grief and old regret. We found a quiet bench under a striped awning, and as we sat, he began recounting his recent heartbreak. "I lost trust in the one I loved," Marcus confessed, his voice steady but laced with sorrow. His words immediately struck a chord deep within me, dredging up memories I had long tried to bury. In that moment, the recollection of my ex-husband Peter, a man whose betrayal had cut into my soul, rose unbidden. I listened, transfixed, as Marcus detailed how deceit had eroded his once unshakable faith in relationships, his tone both raw and reflective. Our conversation swiftly moved beyond everyday chatter. Marcus's vivid recollections of past mistakes and shattered dreams paralleled my own private regrets. I couldn't help but wonder if history was repeating itself with Logan. His sudden reappearance and secretive manner had stirred dormant memories of a time when trust was a fragile commodity, easily lost with a single misstep. As Marcus's narrative deepened, my mind wandered back to simpler days when Logan was a carefree boy, laughing through impromptu games in the golden light of childhood. Those days were long gone, replaced by the complexities of adulthood where every gesture carried hidden implications. Yet as I absorbed Marcus's account, I felt a growing internal divide. Part of me yearned to believe that Logan's behavior was simply the product of unresolved pain, a remnant of familial scars that needed healing. Another part, however, trembled at the thought that his enigmatic silence masked a deeper, more deliberate deception. Every word from Marcus, every painful memory, pushed me to confront the possibility that my nephew's actions might not be innocent at all, but rather echoes of a legacy of betrayal that had haunted our family for years. The fair, with its vibrant life and honest exchanges, became an unlikely stage for my inner turmoil, a place where the ghosts of past relationships danced dangerously close to the present, urging me to seek the truth no matter the cost. Later that afternoon, while browsing the bustling aisles of a local farmer's market, I unexpectedly ran into Elaine, an old friend whose presence once brought comfort and laughter to my life. The familiar sparkle in her eyes was now clouded by worry as she greeted me with a hesitant smile. "Susan, I need to tell you something important," she began, her voice low and tremulous. Without preamble, she revealed that she had discovered Logan had been secretly meeting with her husband, Raymond. The revelation struck me like a bolt from the blue. This was not a simple misunderstanding, but a betrayal that unraveled the delicate fabric of trust woven over years. Elaine's confession was both shocking and unsettling, her words exposing a side of Logan I had not yet seen. We retreated to a quiet corner near a stall laden with fresh produce, where she detailed her suspicions and the strange behavior she had observed over the past few weeks. Each sentence she spoke was laden with a sense of urgency, as though the truth, once uncovered, could no longer be contained. I listened, my mind racing as the implications of her words began to mesh with the cryptic hints I had gathered from Marcus and the mysterious letters that had arrived at my door. Meanwhile, a series of coincidental events deepened the maze of secrets. Marcus had been leaving subtle clues in the form of faded photographs and aged letters that alluded to a conspiracy among family members, a scheme involving Logan, my ex-husband Peter, and even other relatives, designed to redistribute the long-dormant family fortune. Each artifact he presented wove a darker tapestry of hidden agendas and silent alliances, suggesting that every familiar face concealed a web of selfish interests and double standards. With every new revelation, I felt as if I were being drawn into a labyrinth of deceit, where every whispered conversation hinted at betrayal and every friendly smile masked a secret score. As the day wore on, the vibrant market scene began to feel oppressive. The chatter of vendors and the aroma of fresh herbs clashed with the undercurrent of tension that now colored my interactions. Elaine's revelations and Marcus's cryptic gifts converged into a disquieting symphony of clues that compelled me to question everything I had ever believed about my family. I realized that the people I once trusted were now engaged in a dangerous game of manipulation and deceit, each move calculated to serve hidden ambitions. The shadows of their past misdeeds crept ever closer, blurring the line between loyalty and treachery. With a heavy heart and a mind brimming with unanswered questions, I left the market that day, aware that every step I took now was towards an uncertain future where the truth lay tangled in a web of secret connections and double games. That cold evening, as twilight surrendered to a deep, inky darkness, I found myself alone in the silent corridors of the old house. The persistent hum of the wind outside mingled with the soft creaks of the wooden floor, setting an eerie stage for what was to come. I couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was lurking in the shadows of this familiar yet strange sanctuary. While attempting to settle my restless mind with a cup of lukewarm tea, I overheard Logan engaged in a hushed, tense conversation on his cell phone in the adjoining room. His voice, usually so detached and ironic, now carried an edge of raw bitterness and secret urgency that sent shivers down my spine. Unable to contain my curiosity, I crept toward the door of the room, careful not to disturb the charged silence. The snippets of his dialogue reached me in disjointed phrases, mentions of Peter, coded references to influential figures, and hints of a mission that appeared to stretch far beyond our troubled family history. Each word felt like a clue, a piece of a puzzle that I was desperate to solve, even as dread coiled in my gut. The gravity of his conversation confirmed my worst suspicions. Logan's arrival was not a random twist of fate, but a calculated maneuver entangled with deeper family intrigues. Later that night, while I sat in the dim glow of a single lamp, I discovered an old, dust-covered trunk tucked away in the attic. Its heavy wooden lid creaked open to reveal a treasure trove of memories, a leather-bound diary belonging to my late father. The brittle pages overflowed with cryptic entries about long-buried family secrets and unspeakable betrayals that cast everything I thought I knew in a new, harrowing light. Each entry was a raw, unfiltered account of a past filled with deceit and hidden ambitions, and as I read, I felt an overwhelming mix of sorrow, anger, and betrayal. The diary's revelations clashed violently with the hushed voices I had just overheard. I now faced two parallel narratives of my family's dark legacy, one whispered over the phone in the dead of night, and the other inscribed in ink on time-worn pages. It became impossible to tell which of these truths was the real catalyst for the chaos unraveling around me. My heart pounded as I realized that the seemingly disconnected fragments, the clandestine phone call, the mysterious diary, and Logan's increasingly conflicted behavior were inexorably linked. In that silent, charged moment, I knew that the path ahead would force me to confront not only the lies that had long festered within our family, but also the hidden parts of my own heart that I had so carefully guarded. The night's revelations left me reeling, and as dawn broke, I knew that I couldn't let the mounting deceptions continue unchecked. The chill in the morning air did little to calm the tempest raging inside me. I prepared myself mentally for the confrontation that was inevitable. With the weight of the diary's confession still pressing on my heart and the haunting echo of Logan's phone call lingering in my ears, I gathered the courage to face him head-on. I found him in the living room, his posture rigid, a mix of defiance and regret etched on his face. Without preamble, I demanded answers. "Logan, what is the truth behind your visit? Who are you really trying to hide from?" My voice, though trembling with emotion, carried an unwavering resolve. His eyes, once distant and guarded, flickered with uncertainty before hardening into an unreadable mask. He attempted to deflect my questions with feigned nonchalance, but the tension was palpable, a taut string ready to snap. As our conversation escalated, every unspoken word and deliberate pause became weapons in a verbal battle of wills. I pressed on, detailing the diary's damning revelations and the inconsistencies in his stories, each accusation striking like a hammer blow against the brittle facade of his calm demeanor. Logan's initial retorts were curt and dismissive, but gradually, the pressure began to crack his armor. In a moment of raw vulnerability, he tried to justify his actions with a tangle of half-truths and evasions, yet his words only deepened the chasm between us. Amid the escalating conflict, an unexpected move sent my emotions spiraling. In the heat of the argument, when I thought the intensity of his denials had peaked, Logan suddenly stepped closer. His face, marked by a blend of desperation and defiance, contorted into a gesture that I had not anticipated: a kiss. It wasn't the fleeting kiss of a greeting, but a deliberate act, a calculated move intended to momentarily distract and disarm me. The kiss was as shocking as it was unwelcome, a clear signal that his manipulation knew no bounds. It jolted me, igniting a furious mix of revulsion and sorrow. I recoiled, pushing him away both physically and emotionally. That impulsive, intrusive gesture shattered any lingering remnants of trust. The room, heavy with the stench of betrayal, now felt like a battleground where every word and every action carried the weight of our shared history and present regrets. As the confrontation reached its crescendo, I realized that this was not merely about the secrets that had been unearthed. It was a battle for my very soul, a fight against the deception that threatened to engulf the remnants of the life I had so painstakingly rebuilt. In the ensuing silence, heavy with unspoken accusations and raw emotions, I stepped out into the morning light, leaving Logan surrounded by the echoes of our fractured dialogue. With each step away from that suffocating room, I resolved to reclaim the trust one had lost and to rebuild a life defined by truth rather than manipulation. The family dinner was supposed to be a quiet reunion, a simple gathering to share stories and meals, but as soon as I stepped into the dining room, the atmosphere crackled with tension. The long oak table, usually a symbol of unity, now seemed to stretch out like a battleground where each face bore its own secret. I sat at the head, feeling the weight of every unspoken word and hidden motive. Across from me, familiar eyes stared back, each one carrying a mix of guilt, defiance, and regret. The conversation started innocently enough, a few pleasantries, murmurs of nostalgia about past holidays, but it didn't take long for old wounds to reappear. When I casually mentioned the diary's revelations, a palpable hush fell over the table. Logan's expression shifted from guarded anger to resigned sorrow. I could sense that the carefully constructed facades were crumbling around us. Without warning, voices began to rise. Accusations that had been simmering beneath the surface erupted into an all-out confrontation. Logan was the first to break, his voice trembling as he confessed, "I never meant for any of this to happen. I was trying to protect us all." His words were met with a mixture of disbelief and contempt. Peter, my ex-husband, finally spoke up, his tone bitter and raw. "Protect us? Or was it just another excuse to cover up your own betrayal?" His words sliced through the tension like a knife, exposing old scars that had festered for too long. I watched as Raymond, Elaine's husband, sank lower in his chair, his silence more damning than any accusation could be. As the dinner devolved into a chaotic mix of conflicting stories and desperate pleas, I saw the truth emerge like a harsh spotlight on our darkest secrets. Marcus, who had been quietly listening until now, interjected with a trembling voice. "It's all been a game of selfish interests. We've been manipulating each other, trying to salvage fortunes, and in doing so, we've destroyed what little trust we had left." His words resonated through the room, forcing everyone to confront the bitter reality of our intertwined lives. I felt a surge of anguish as the facade of family unity disintegrated before my eyes. Every lie, every half-truth that had been carefully concealed was now laid bare. The dinner table became the stage for our collective reckoning, a bitter, unrelenting confrontation where every whispered secret transformed into a shout of betrayal. In that moment, I realized that broken bridges could never be mended with empty apologies. The bitter taste of deceit, the raw exposure of hidden agendas, and the final acknowledgement of our shared culpability left me with a deep, soul-crushing sorrow. The night ended with bitter farewells, the remnants of what once was now scattered like shattered glass on the floor. I stepped out into the cool night air, feeling both a painful loss and a strange relief. The dinner had been the final, irrevocable act of exposure, a reckoning that, despite its pain, offered a chance to rebuild something authentic from the ruins of our past. In the quiet aftermath of the explosive dinner, I found myself alone in the desolate expanse of the cottage, a space that now echoed with both the remnants of past turmoil and the tentative stirrings of hope. The air was crisp as I wandered through rooms filled with scattered letters, faded photographs, and memories that no longer felt like chains but rather keys to understanding. It was in this solitude that I began the painstaking process of piecing together my shattered identity, determined to forge a new beginning from the ruins of betrayal. That evening, after the cacophony of shattered trust and bitter revelations, I sought solace in the familiar rhythm of nature. I stepped outside into the vast, starlit sky and allowed the silence to wash over me. The night was clear, and the cool air carried with it a promise of renewal. Each step on the frost-kissed path became a meditation on loss, regret, and ultimately, the resilience of the human spirit. I recalled the tender moments of my solitary walks, where every breath of the mountain air had once whispered hope and the possibility of healing. Now, those same trails reminded me that every ending, however painful, also heralds the birth of something new. Days merged into a slow, reflective journey. I immersed myself in local art classes, reconnecting with creative souls who, like me, had known despair but were not defined by it. Their stories of renewal, each stroke of paint on canvas a silent testament to transformation, resonated with the ache in my heart. I began to rebuild my days around honest conversations, quiet laughter, and the steady reclamation of my sense of self. The once oppressive walls of my home slowly softened as I embraced change, a metamorphosis sparked by raw, unfiltered truths and nurtured by newfound connections. Then, one clear morning, I discovered a small note resting on the kitchen table, a final, unexpected gesture from Logan. In his handwriting, a sincere apology mingled with the symbolism of a key to his old apartment. That key was more than a token of regret. It was an invitation to acknowledge our shared past while choosing to step forward on separate paths. Holding the key, I felt a bittersweet mix of sorrow and liberation. It signified that although the bonds of our family had been irrevocably altered by deceit and betrayal, there remained a possibility for redemption and growth. In that silent moment, standing at the precipice of a new day, I resolved to let the past serve as a profound lesson rather than a perpetual burden. I recognized that every scar and every broken bridge carried within it the seeds of a future defined by truth and authenticity. With cautious optimism and an unwavering commitment to rebuilding my life on my own terms, I stepped into the dawning light, ready to embrace a future that promised both healing and the chance to rediscover my true self.